Yeah.
Yeah. So what is life like right now?
It's you're kind of getting used to it after a month or so. A lot of people say that they are just tired from being anxious, even if it relates to you directly, like it does for me, because not me nor my family can make any plans because our house can get destroyed any minute. So none of us have a job, obviously enough. Um, it feels you feel especially in light of yesterday events, you often feel exposed because like you understand that even the very like actual fine situation that you might get going on, it can be destroyed any minute, and technically you have no way of knowing because the air raid alarms only provide like 10 minutes for you to hide, and every time you hide you actually don't know if it will get bombed, you will get shelled, if it will be just a false alarm, because once it worked for a foreign plane that was flying way too close to the border. Um, so in short, to sum it up, you're anxious, you don't know what you're doing, you feel exposed, and maybe also a bit undignified, because obviously no one's identifying as those, you know, no one wants for this to happen to them, and you feel like your personal dignity has been disrespected because you're forced to hide, to save up, because many people don't have a job right now, to give up occasionally hygiene or plans or your education. um, yeah, and dignified, anxious, exposed. I mean, I'm translating all I can because English is one of few things I can bring to use, I could say. I'm trying to find a job, but obviously every job that requires more intellectual work than the physical work is very hard to find. Everyone wants to get in. But yeah, I mean, I'm doing as much as I can. A lot of people are volunteering right now like crazy. They're working like 12 hours, I don't know, even more occasionally. They're constantly on the line with someone. Yeah.
And what about your school? Do you still get to go to school?
Yeah, obviously, not every region has renewed education and educational process. But even in Kharkiv, where are constant bombings, people, some universities are renewing their lectures. It's quiet here, so the lectures continue. Some universities are even bringing up the pre-war set of rules, like with deadlines, with seminars, exams, etc. Um, but ours is currently a bit more lenient, I believe it's called. We have much less work than we did before war. So I'm still getting to do something. I do have a family, yes, and they are as well in Lviv. They have moved out first day of the war, which I'm really glad to think. I mean, I have one family member left in there, and unfortunately, we've lost connection. So I don't know how she is exactly. But most of them are here. So I don't worry about them that much, at least in terms of war and bombings and shellings and like them getting shot by Russian soldiers or something. But they still have to find a job and pay the bills. That doesn't go anywhere, unfortunately. But what we have is something like 80% of Ukrainians don't. So I'm thankful for that at the very least.
80% of Ukrainians don't what?
Um, don't have an opportunity to look for a job, don't have a place to stay, don't have a roof over their heads or quiet nights. So, I mean, we have like one air raid alarm daily. That's very little. Usually, say again, in Kharkiv, air raid alarm is sort of a default setting. Enough, it's not scheduled, so it's different from day to day. But they're bombed often, there are constant shellings. It's unsafe to drive out of the city by yourself, only using the evacuation trains.
And what about the evacuation trains? Because I know on the news here in America, we've heard a lot about how these corridors that are supposed to be safe for civilians are not safe.
Yeah, it's even funny in a way because they're just downright lying at the like well politicians are just downright lying. They're saying the corridors will be safe and they aren't. Evacuation trains are, as far as I know, kind of a different thing. um, they are only work they only work at the limited amount of areas, namely I know Kharkiv and a region a bit northern, a bit higher, and they are working. The train is going directly across the country here to the west, and yeah, these trains are evacuating people. They're only doing that. The humanitarian corridors, as far as I know, are supposed to provide food, medication, water, clothes. They're supposed to help people to stay where they are. Maybe they're also evacuating. Yeah, I think they're also evacuating, but probably at the much smaller capacity, because again, there is a certain amount of people that can fit in a train and in a car, albeit a special sort of car, I believe. Yeah, so that's the difference and the essence of their work, as far as I know.
Thank you. And do you have a lot of friends? Do you have a lot of people you know that have left Ukraine and evacuated?
Yeah, almost all of my friends have left. Like I'd say 3 out of 6 have left. I don't know much about my um, acquaintances from the university because obviously I'm not banging into people's DMs asking, so are you in Ukraine or are you somewhere abroad? Where exactly? Especially because people are skeptical about giving out this kind of information online. Um, but yeah, I'd say it's popular among them. But once again, it's a certain economical class. So many people, I think that since I'm going to a particular kind of university, I grew up with a particular kind of people from families with a certain income, they can allow themselves to leave. And I'm sure if we go in like lower in class, a lot of people just can't afford it because aside from crossing the border, you also are supposed to buy food and find a shelter there, and not many people have money for that.
Do you want to leave?
Well, if I had the opportunity, I would have left. Um, so far, it's not a dire necessity because, once again, it's relatively quiet here and safe. We were looking into opportunities because a lot of universities are offering exchange programs for Ukrainian students, but they are all currently closed because they've run out of places and the half the semester is already passed. So it will be hard to integrate students. So yeah, if I had the comfortable opportunity, I would have left, but currently I don't. And it's not that much of a necessity for me to wait in line like 6 hours to cross the border and figure out the rest as I go. So I'm staying so far.
And what is that process like waiting for 6 hours to cross the border? Do all Ukrainian refugees get across, or can you get stopped at the border?
If you're a male from 18 to 60, 65, something like that, you will not get allowed to cross the border unless you bribe someone. But aside from that, I think everyone is allowed to leave. And well, staying in line for 6 hours is just like staying in line for 6 hours at any other border. You're waiting, you're moving slowly, then you get allowed in there eventually.
And how is like day-to-day life for you? Is it pretty normal?
Well, um, as many people find it, war had touched almost every aspect of my daily life. You have to take it into consideration almost with everything you do. Um, as if we are talking about like give or take set schedule, a lot of people here stay up until like 1 or 2 a.m. because they're waiting for the air raid alarm. It has a fashion of appearing like at 2 to 4 a.m. at night. They're trying to demoralize us, but not letting us get enough sleep, as many people are saying. I try to volunteer as much as I can, but I'm mostly working as a replace worker. So if someone falls sick or has some sort of urgent business to take care of, then they call me. And I'm mostly volunteering for American paramedics. I don't know if you've heard of them, Rubicon. Yeah, so they're here. They occasionally need entrepreneurs, and that's why when I'm trying to do as much as I can, I'm trying to give my time for studying, especially with the amount of online resources who had allowed premium access to Ukrainians. But mostly I'm focusing on trying to find a job. In the region where I'm currently, it was hard enough even before the war. And right now, well, all the intellectual jobs are taken away really fast. I'm talking like matter of hours, half an hour, it will probably get closed. So you need to react fast. You have to have your cover letter, your resume ready. Just as soon as you see it, you send it. I've managed to find a job as a waitress, but my employer turned out to be the working conditions didn't match those discussed during the job interview. So I had to quit, unfortunately, or fortunately, so, with these work conditions. Yeah.
All right, thank you. And I guess my next question is more of, what do you need from us? What can we do to help you here in America?
Well, the obvious and a bit, what's it? It's a bit of a cynical first statement, but donations, because people, especially in territorial defense, that's sort of like half volunteering organization. So a lot of soldiers right now need to buy their own equipment. Thus, donations, money, food, there's plenty probably. Also, spreading the information, fighting the Russian propaganda. Ukraine didn't want to connect to Russia. It's not a part of Russia. It's its own separate country. Ukrainian is its own separate language. We have fought against Russian oppression for 600s of years. If anyone wants to know more or wants to know what exactly Russia is spreading, they can reach out to me. I'm more than happy to explain. And so working against Russian propaganda, donating, not forgetting. I know it's hard to constantly remember about each and every war conflict going on in the world because there's constantly like 5 of them or something. But from a bit of a egotistical point of view, please don't forget about us. It's still going on in there. It's still scary, and it will be relevant for a lot of countries if we fall. And I think that will be about it. Support Ukrainian artists, Ukrainian musicians, etc. Yeah.
And what is this Russian propaganda that you were talking about?
Well, Putin tries to justify his invasion of Ukraine. For example, one of the myths that he is spreading is that the Russian-speaking population is getting oppressed in the Ukraine. The thing is that he is bombing and shelling most actively. He is destroying. He is like just to the ground the cities that have the highest percent of Russian-speaking population. So he's kind of contradicting himself. Again, in Lviv, where I'm currently am, probably it has one of the worst treatment of Russian-speaking people. That is, there are not many of them. There is no Nazism. There can be. We have like there is. I am Russian-speaking. I came to Lviv. I can say as a Russian-speaking person that I was not discriminated against. Absolutely. Even if I spoke Russian with my friends, with my family on the streets, I occasionally accidentally talked in Russian to local residents. It was perfectly fine. And again, so Lviv as the most Ukrainian nationalistic city is not getting bombed. So this is another place where Putin contradicts himself with fighting against Russian aggression. Another thing that he's saying is maybe, I don't know, it's every Ukrainian disregards it as being absolutely not true. So it's hard to keep them in mind. Ukrainian, he says that Ukrainian is a dialect. It's not. It's even closer to Polish or Czech than it is to Russian. Yeah, Ukraine has been fighting for independence for 600 of years against them, and we have been trying to declare ourselves as an independent country for those 600 of years. So it's not something new. We didn't want to join the Russia. We don't want to join the Russia. Like, I think that less than 10% people want it now. Every person is taking it differently. Some people are numb. They're just trying to survive from day to day. Some people feel like they're living in a, Groundhog Day. Like, they constantly repeating a cycle of events. I don't remember the name in English. And well, it's hard to say how everyone is taking it. Every person is taking this kind of stress differently. If you want some heartbreaking stories, just look up stories from Mariupol. That's the city that is getting seized currently. They're not allowing any humanitarian help in there. People don't have food, water, clothes, heating, obviously enough. They're dying. It's like Stalingrad in 1945 or whatever year that was. This is a catastrophe. That's an actual catastrophe. It's terrifying. So, but overall, people are optimistic. We don't have much of other options, because if you start reevaluating our chances for actual victory after such bloody war, it's really easy to lose the spirit. But we are optimistic. Everyone is doing as much as they can, and everyone is really, really hoping to win this, to hold our ground.